Hello all, in this video I'm going to be taking a look at something I've been looking forward to showing off for a long time now, the soundtrack to Doom. This music was so good they actually made a game around it, and it's a pretty good game, but this video is just going to be focused on this soundtrack and what I received when I bought this vinyl. So the Doom soundtrack was composed by Australian composer Mick Gordon, who started his career doing various works of all sorts of games in the sound design department, starting with something called Hot Dog King in 2006, at least according to his Wikipedia page. Unfortunately, I couldn't find much information regarding it, but at some point it seems like he got in with Bethesda Softworks, because since 2014 he's worked on various projects the company has published, starting with Machine Games' Wolfenstein: The New Order in 2014, its expansion, The Old Blood, id Software's Doom, which obviously is this, Arcane's Prey, and most recently Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. He's also composing the soundtrack for Doom Eternal, which I think most people are looking forward to more than actually playing the game. I know I am, at least. The final release of this soundtrack was pressed by Laced Records in association with Bethesda Softworks and id Software. It was released in 2018, and this edition is the 4-disc box set, which also came with a copy of the album on CD, and also a vinyl slip mat, which is just plain black and says Doom on it. I might put a picture at the end of the video, which is rather nice. I always like a good bonus. To start with, on the box here you can see that they've decided to reuse the reverse cover art from the original release of Doom 2016, which, let's be frank, should have been the only cover they used anyway, instead of generic Space Marine holding a shotgun. At least they fixed it for the Switch game release and this vinyl release. The artwork is very high quality, and the printing method they've used feels extremely solid. You can tell they haven't skimped out during the manufacturing process. I think it could sustain a lot of wear and tear, and I don't see it fading anytime soon. The picture wraps around the box and continues onto the spine in the rear, which gives you one unbroken image. Now, I'm a sucker for good art, and it's nice when people who design these things realise that the product itself can be just as important as the music, especially for a collector or a nerd or an audiophile, or just someone who appreciates art, which I'm assuming is probably most of us. Inside the box is the insert, which holds the discs, plain black with a lovely bright orange satanic symbol to really give you that Doom feeling. Inside it holds the 4-disc sleeves fairly tightly. There's not much wiggle room here, so they stand up straight without leaning whilst inside, which is nice. You could stand just this part of the box up by itself if you were listening to the album in its entirety, say, and you just needed to slip them in and out as needed. Now, these disc sleeves are probably my favourite part of the entire thing. They're high quality cardboard sleeves, and the artwork, like the outer box, is just lovely. Sleeve 1 has the lab room where the Doomslayer wakes up at the beginning of the game. The second has some art of Kandingir Sanctum during the initial visit to Hell. The third features the Vega core, and finally the fourth, and my personal favourite, is this beautiful rendering of Argent D'Nur from the end of the game. Just look at those colours. Now, I couldn't find any information pertaining to the artwork used for this final release, but I'm almost certain that it's the work of Emerson Tunn, who is a senior concept artist at id Software. Below I'll put a link to his website so you can look at his stuff, which I highly recommend doing because it's brilliant. The back of these sleeves has a demon rune from the game in the centre, with a different one for each sleeve, and a track listing of the associated disc, credits, and best of all, around the edges, they have the speech from each one of the 4 spoken tracks of the game, which are known as the Doomslayer's Testament, and they are Dogma, Demigod, Darkma, and Doom. Now, the track listing of the first disc actually shows my least favourite thing about this entire album being released on vinyl, and it's that the second testament, Demigod, is the last track that plays on the A side of disc 1, whilst the track Hellwalker, which is the menu theme of the game, is the first track on the B side. Now, if you're watching this video, you're most likely a Doom fan and have probably already listened to the soundtrack in its entirety, and possibly in sequence as well. But just in case you haven't, the ending of Demigod acts as an intro to the track of Hellwalker, and they transition from one to the other fairly nicely. It's good if you listen to them in sequence. But unfortunately you don't get that with this release, because after the end of Demigod you have to stop to swap the disc to the other side to listen to Hellwalker, which ruins the flow and was a pretty big letdown. Honestly, it's not the biggest deal in the world, it's only really a small thing, and the music is unbelievably good. It's just something that would have been nice, just for the sake of listening, but I imagine it's something they probably thought about whilst they were manufacturing it and just couldn't manage because of the limited space on a vinyl disc. The spine of these sleeves also has the title of the disc, which is just the numerical order of the Slayer Testament, disc 1 being Dogma, disc 2 being Demigod, and so on, even though Demigod is also on disc 1. Disc 2 doesn't have any of the testaments whatsoever, but, you know, never mind. The disc covers are a simple plain black, which works well enough. I always prefer more art if possible, but the whole package is already so impressive that it thankfully doesn't detract, and thank Christ that they'd had the sense to use black instead of white, which just generally looks awful no matter what. I hate white sleeves. Each disc is 180 grams and a lovely translucent red, which is very Doom and was a great call on part of the designers. I've seen a few people online say they've had problems with minor warping and surface noise, but I'm happy to say they've had no problems with mine whatsoever. They sound absolutely perfect and were delivered in pristine condition. The sticker around the centre of each disc is the same on both sides and has the disc title, number and side letter, as well as a rune which matches the one on the back of the sleeve that it came out of. And that just about covers everything there is to see with this release. One of the better vinyl purchases I've made for sure, and something I'd love to display on the shelf because it's certainly made to do so. I just can't stop listening to the bloody thing. Thanks for watching.